40 years ago, while working in the civil service as a sideline, Tommy Keys wrote songs and played keyboard with a number of prominent Dublin bands. However, as his career with the state progressed, music took a backseat until last year when Tommy retired, and 4 decades of pent-up words and music are flowing through his first album called An Irish Life. And he's here with me on the show today. Tommy, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Gerry. Gerry, I'll have to get you to write my press releases after that. That was a great introduction. Thank you very much.
Would you take me on in the department if you were there still?
What's the transfer fee from LMFM? We'll have to investigate that.
I could be on a free. Anyway, you're so welcome to the show. I want to tell listeners, Tommy Keys, of course, is your stage name. Yeah. You are Tom O'Mahony.
That's my real name, yeah.
Tell me first about you, where you're from and how you came to work in the civil service.
Well, I'm a Dubliner that shouts for Meath against Dublin, which is a story in itself. I'm an adopted Meath man, Gerry. I've been living 35 years in Meath, and I'm so thoroughly Meath man now that I was even a bit disappointed that Dublin ended up winning that match yesterday. So there you go. There you go. I joined the civil service when I left school. I was always passionate about music. I used to sit at home at the piano, even when I was a small boy, trying to pick out songs by ear and write my own songs. And in those days, if you played an instrument, there were so many opportunities to be in bands. The 70s was a fantastic time to be a musician because there were so many places to play. And I had a great time for a number of years. But my civil service career went well. I was working long hours. I got married. I settled down, and something had to give. So the playing, the performing had to give. But I was still writing songs, never thinking anything would ever happen with them. But I'd go home in the evening and sit down after a hard day and just sit at the piano, and it would all come out.
And it's all coming out now, all these years later. Yeah. Which department did you start working in?
Oh, I was all over the place. I kept getting found out and moved on. I was in the because I was from Dublin and had gone to school in Sing Street in inner city Dublin. They felt I was obviously ideal for the Department of Agriculture, so that's where I started. I didn't even know what Wellingtons looked like, to be quite honest with you. And I was then in the Department of Finance, and I was then in the Department of Health, and I moved on and I was in the Department of the Environment and finished up it was the Department of Transport when I went there, and then got tourism and sport as well. So when I retired, it was from the Department of Transport, Tourism and Sport.
And I can tell you, this man retired top of the tree. You were secretary, were you there?
I was the head of the department. I kept getting promoted above my abilities and somehow never got found out.
You see fellas say that. Don't be detracting at all. You got there, of course, on merit and hard work and long hours and everything that goes along with it. In terms of, just an aside, and I don't want to talk about Brazil and Hickey or anything like that, but just in a general sense, in sport while you're here, do you think, do government appreciate sport enough? Does enough money go into it?
You can never put enough money into something like sport, but for about 10 years we have been putting massively more than we did, and that has actually been reflected. If people go and look at the charts of the Olympics, I mean, people are a bit down this year because we only came home with 2 medals. We came home with 2 silver medals. There was, there was a long period where Olympics were going by one after the other. We weren't getting anything at all. It's not just the number of medals. I think there were 14 finished in the Olympics, 14 finished in the top 10 or the top 20. I'm not sure. It's a stat I saw this morning.
That is right.
So it has actually been an extremely good Olympics, and a lot of that is because the best athletes for the Olympics now, they are getting annual payments from the Sports Council to enable them effectively to be full-time, and the sports capital grants are put in facilities all around the country. Of course you'd like to do an awful lot more, but even in the depths of the recession that we had, the government still managed to keep putting a fair amount of money into sport. And that's something that, as the head of the department, I was particularly pleased about because I'm passionate about sport myself.
When you finish up, did you go early, or was it your time to go?
My time was up. Okay. Yeah. I'm an old man, Gerry.
Please, hold on a minute. This figure of old has really been pushed way out nowadays.
That's true.
In many moons ago, in your 50s, you would be, but not anymore. Tell us this. Obviously for you, with the music and keeping, tipping away as you did through all those years, you probably looked at this as a brand new start for you.
Oh, I did. People were talking to me about retiring, and I said, well, I'm not really retiring, I'm just changing. About 4 or 5 years ago, I was inspired by a friend of mine who had released an album, and I just said, I could do this. I have you know, I have a lot of songs I've written over the years. This would be a very, very nice thing to push my efforts into when I retire. And the funny thing was that as soon as I got the idea that I was going to do that, the songs just started coming, new songs, and what was going to be one album became 2 albums. And eventually, when I retired, I went into the studio for 3 months and I recorded 3 albums. It's mad.
Talk about having a well within you that just suddenly arrives out and away you go.
Yeah.
But the first one is the one, is it released yet?
It is, yeah. It was released a few weeks ago. It's called It's called An Irish Life. And I noticed that a lot of my songs were kind of autobiographical or semi-autobiographical, and maybe that's because they say write what you know, and the, you know, things that I had experienced kept coming into my lyrics. So I decided I would pull all those songs together and make a kind of a story out of it, kind of a song cycle about a typical Irish life. A lot of it is about me, a lot of it is about things that didn't maybe happen to me but happened to people that I knew. So it's about somebody growing up in the 50s and 60s and playing in bands and having to emigrate, which I never had to do. And then coming home and working hard and having kids and bringing kids to football matches, and then the cycle repeats because the kids are suddenly on the other side of the world. So I think it's actually, if people listen to the songs, and I know that you are going to play one or two of them, I think there'll be things in the songs that people can relate to and say, well, that's kind of about me too.
We're going to hear the first song now in a moment, and it's called Slow Down World. Yeah. What is this song about? Is this about your daughter?
This song is about my eldest daughter, and on the album there are songs that I wrote 30, 40 years ago even, and songs I wrote quite recently. And Slow Down World was written nearly 30 years ago because it was written shortly after my first daughter was born, and it's about the feeling that you get that suddenly everything changes when a child enters the scene and your priorities are suddenly completely different.
Let's hear it from the album An Irish Life, Slow Down World.
When my baby smiles at me, there is nowhere else I'd rather be. Time goes by so easily beside her. It's a slow down world for me and my girl. When my baby cries, I say, hush her by now, it's okay. And she knows I'll always stay beside her. It's a slow down world for me and my girl. My little girl, she can brighten up the world for a tired and weary run around like me. My little girl, she is all I've waited for, and I'm slowing down to spend my time with her. When my baby grows, she'll be anything she wants to be, but for now she's here with me, beside her. It's a slow down world for me and my girl.
Slow Down World from the new album by Tommy Keys called An Irish Life. That's about Catherine, is it?
That's about my eldest daughter, Catherine, yeah. It was written shortly after she was born, and as I said, it's about how your whole routine and your busyness and all the things you do suddenly get to one side when you just want to be there with this perfect little child.
And I know you've 3 children, Ellen and Cian. Now, I remember the day Ellen O'Mahony and Carla Ryan came here and sang for me their own beautiful composition. You were there that day. It was only when I met you now I put the two together, but you
That's
laid
right, yeah.
low.
Ellen and Carla have been in here a couple of times. They've performed live on the programme, and Ellen's my daughter. And Ellen and Carla both sing on the album, and my son Cian sings on the album as well. And Catherine has been making videos for me because she's in the television business, so they're all involved. So it's great.
A team effort by the O'Mahonys. So. Where did the name Tommy Keys come from when you took that name as your...
Yeah, I felt I needed a stage name because first of all I didn't think O'Mahony was a particularly memorable name for a musician, and also I wanted to keep my two persona quite separate. I wanted to keep the musician quite separate from the civil servant, and it was simply that I play keyboards. So I just said, Tommy Keys.
And in your professional life, did they know? Did you ever do party pieces in the department when you had your parties or things like that?
I think in the early days, yes, they did know. But I mean, I was quite junior, and by the time I kind of started moving up the ranks, I'd kind of left it behind, and I used not really to talk about it. So, but when I launched the album, I had a big gig back at the end of May in the Button Factory, and just for the crack of it, I invited all my former Secretary General colleagues, all the Sir Humphreys. So it was and a lot of them came. So it was probably the weirdest demographic that has ever been at a gig in the Button Factory, but they liked it. What you have to remember is people aren't just one thing. The fact that you're a senior civil servant, that just doesn't define you. In your spare time, you might be in an orchestra, as I know one of them is, or you might be a closet musician like myself, or you might be painting beautiful pictures. People aren't defined just by what they do in their job.
Certainly not. And the amount of talent, I worked in the civil service myself for a number of years. I know what it's all about, and the interest, and the things that people did and followed were simply amazing and diverse. Tommy Keys is with us on Late Lunch. The new album is called An Irish Life, and we're going to hear another track from the man himself and chat more after the break. An adopted Meath man, he says he is. He cheers for the Royal County when they're playing against his home county, Dublin. I'd say he'll be in trouble for that after today.
Not in Meath, they won't.
They'll love you in Meath, so they will. Tommy Keys is with me on Late Lunch. Take me back to the time when music was, a big part of your life, which it's been, but you know what I mean. You had the job, but music was very important. Sidewinder is a group, I remember.
Yeah, we were based in Dunboyne because we had a practice facilities in Dunboyne. It was certainly the best group that I was ever in, and we did well. It like a lot of groups at that time, it was short-lived, just a couple of years. But I mean, we had quite a few television appearances, radio appearances, and so on. But in those days, it's quite funny. Any young band now, the first thing they'll do is they'll have their film up on YouTube or whatever, and none of that existed, of course. And what you used to do was do demos on cassette. And you do your demo on cassette, and there weren't many radio stations, and there was no LMFM or anything like that. But Dave Fanning took a shine to us. Dave was working in a station in Dublin called Big D, and Dave started playing us every night. He would play Sultans of Swing by Dire Straits, and he would play Sailing Ships by Sidewinder, or This Is the Movies by Sidewinder every night, and that was great. But in those days, you could... If you wanted to play, you could nearly play every night a week, because it was still the time that social life was based around the pubs, and the pubs wanted music. It was before they started getting DJs or anything like that. You mightn't make an awful lot of money, but you could certainly play. And in the summertime, you could play in a pub until closing time, and you'd have another set of gear set up somewhere there was going to be a dance, and you'd head off in your car, and you might play twice. It was a fantastic time to be a musician, and I feel really sorry for the kids in their late teens and early 20s now who are forming bands and so on, because there are so few places that they can actually play. It's very, very sad.
So you would think today, even with all the technology, you mentioned YouTube, the instant of Twitter and Snapchat and all this type of stuff, that it's a tough game, an even tougher game.
Because you can't play. What you can do is you can film, you can be on SoundCloud, Bandcamp, YouTube, you can do everything like that. But if you're a musician, really first and foremost what you want to be doing is standing on a stage, playing your instruments live to people who are listening to your songs. And there are so few opportunities for bands to do that now. It's really sad. What I'm doing now, and what I'm really enjoying, there is a trend emerging now of singer-songwriter sessions where there will be 4 or 5 singer-songwriters on the one night. And there's actually a very good one in this area, the Purple Sessions in Boyles of Slane, which Jerry Hodgers runs. That's on the last Thursday of every month. I'm going to be doing that one at the end of November. There's another very good one in Leixlip, which is called the Leap Sessions. There's a few of them around. And, for somebody like me, that's great. Now, of course, you're not going to make any money or anything like that. But to me, that's not really important. I just want people to hear my songs.
Is it more difficult if you're original, like you, writing your own, bringing new stuff, to people? You have bands that do the covers and that, and they get a lot of gigs.
Yes. Yeah, certainly there are opportunities to do that. But I did all that. I mean, I don't really want to do. I could probably be playing, in the background in a pub somewhere or in a, hotel or something, just kind of doing a bit of Billy Joel or whatever. And that would be nice, but I don't really, I did all that. What I want people to do now is to kind of listen to my songs. I like that song. So the only way that's going to happen is, where I can play places where they actually want to hear original music. And I think the singer-songwriter sessions are the best opportunity for that.
Would you go on a tour if the opportunity arose? You mentioned Leixlip and Slane that are within hitting distance of where we are here today, but would you like to take it on a national basis and go and play for people all over the country?
Absolutely. I think every musician wants to play. You can, as I said, you can, with social media now, and I'm very active on Facebook and so on, you can go in and record a song, do a video, you can have it all around the country. But what you really want to do is go out there and, play live and let people hear. But that's only going to happen when people get to be familiar with the songs. So I'm hoping, I'm delighted to be here with you today, and I'm hoping to do this in a lot of other areas as well. I know it's a slow process, but to try and gradually build up a bit of recognition. Maybe if one or two of the songs go down well, maybe if somebody famous covers one of the songs or something like that, it might take off from there.
Now, this one album is substantial in its own right, but you mentioned earlier on you cut 3 albums.
I did.
In the one session, which was over a period of time.
It was over about 3 months. It was very long. I was kind of mad in a way, but I reckoned if I had all of this material and I had assembled really good musicians, I had immensely good musicians, some of the best players in the country. Richie Buckley, the sax player, has played with Van Morrison. Dick Farrelly, a fabulous lead guitarist. I had all of these people assembled. So I said, well, look, I have this now. I have the songs. We have them all arranged. I have the musicians. Let's just keep going. And so the 3 of them, if anybody goes on my website, the 3 of them are available. I'm promoting one of them, and in due course I'll move on and promote another one. But they're all available. I'm an old man, Gerry. I mightn't be around if I wait too long to promote them.
No, indeed, you will. You'll be around plenty of time to promote them. Just back to your job and what you did. Do you miss it? When the time came for you to sling your hook and head off?
Everyone asks me that question, and the honest answer is no, because I did it for a very long time. I was 43 years in the job. The last 25 of them were at a very, very senior level. So that was exhilarating, and it had its stressful moments and so on, but it was great. But I always knew that there was a day when it would come to an end, and I for the last few years my approach was do this 110% and enjoy it, and the day it stops, accept that it has stopped, because there's other things that you want to do. So, the thing about transport, tourism and sport is there's a lot of stuff in that is controversial, that's in the newspapers. There's been a lot of it in the newspapers over the last few weeks that I really don't want to get into. But I can pick up the newspaper, and whether it's a potential bus strike or train strike or sporting problem or whatever, I can say, well, if somebody else can do all that now, I did it for long enough.
You can answer this if you want. I don't mind if you're passing it. When you're secretary and you're high up and in senior positions, and the government changes and a new minister comes in, is it the civil servants run the country? What do the boys and girls who come in as ministers, do they really have a say?
The government runs the country, and it's the job of the civil servants to help them. And in particular, when a new minister comes in, I've had the experience several times of somebody coming in who was becoming a senior minister for the first time, and they know when they come in that in the early stages they're very, very, very reliant on us, and it's very, very important that we, and I'm still speaking in the present tense here, but that we have a good relationship with them, and I've been very, very lucky. That always worked very, very well for me. We advise, they decide.
The party line.
It's the truth.
I said I'd ask it when you were here with me. Anyway, it's Music Today with Tommy Keys, and we're going to finish with the second track from your album, An Irish Life. This is called Souvenirs.
Yeah. It's funny that the two tracks that you picked out are both about my daughter Catherine, because Souvenirs was written about 3 or 4 years ago, shortly after my eldest daughter, my pride and joy, up sticks and went off to Australia. And this is, every parent, or most parents in Ireland, confront this at some time or other. And of course you're delighted for your kids to have all these opportunities, but part of you misses them terribly. And one of the ways I dealt with that was I wrote the song just about the empty bedroom and all the photographs and school awards and things that were still sitting there, and the line in it is, they bring you near but they cannot bring you here. And I really, this song will be the next single in about a month's time, and I hope that a lot of people around the country will listen to it and say, oh, that could be about me. It
rang a bell with me, to be sure. She's back home now, I have to tell you, but for the moment,
so is Catherine, I'm glad to say, as well.
Tommy Keys, good luck with the album An Irish Life, and we're going to finish our chat today with the track Souvenirs. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Gerry.
A baby tooth, a worn boot, a tattered teddy bear, a picture book, a plastic truck, a lock of golden hair, a card you made for Father's Day, a hat you never wore, a valentine, a handmade sign you hung beside your door. Your souvenirs that we gathered through the years, they bring you near, but they cannot bring you here. A school award, a motorboat from graduation day, a photograph that made you laugh before you flew away. Your souvenirs that we gathered through the years, they bring you near, but they cannot bring you here. They're on the shelf as when you left the room that's still your own. They wait for you just like we do until you're called